The story of protein is part science, part culture and a good dose of mythology. We are best at hiding those things which are in plain sight. Nothing has been so well hidden as the untold story of protein. The dogma surrounding protein censures, reproaches and guides, directly or indirectly, almost every thought we have in biomedical research. Ever since the discovery of this nitrogen-containing chemical in 1839 by the Dutch chemist Gerhard Mulder, protein has loomed as the most sacred of all nutrients. The word protein comes from the Greek word proteos, which means of prime importance. In the 19th century, protein was synonymous with meat, and this connection has stayed with us for well over 100 years. Many people today still equate protein with animal-based food. If you were to name the first food that comes to mind when I say protein, you might say beef. If you did, you aren't alone. Confusion reigns on many of the most basic questions about protein. What are good sources of protein? How much protein should one consume? Is plant protein as good as animal protein? Is it necessary to combine certain plant foods in a meal to get complete proteins? Is it advisable to take protein powders or amino acid supplements, especially for someone who does vigorous exercise or plays sport? Should one take protein supplements to build muscle? Some protein is considered high quality, some low quality. What does this mean? Where do vegetarians get protein? Can vegetarian children grow properly without animal protein? Fundamental to many of these common questions and concerns is the belief that meat is protein and protein is meat. This belief comes from the fact that the soul of animal-based foods is protein. In many meat and dairy products, we can selectively remove the fat, but we are still left with recognizable meat and dairy products. We do this all the time with lean cuts of meat and skim milk. But if we selectively remove the protein from animal-based foods, we are left with nothing like the original. A non-protein steak, for example, would be a puddle of water, fat and a small amount of vitamins and minerals. Who would eat that? In brief, for a food to be recognized as an animal-based food, it must have protein. Protein is the core element of animal-based foods. Early scientists like Carl Voigt (1831 to 1908), a prominent German scientist, were staunch champions of protein. Voigt found that man needed only 48.5 grams per day, but nonetheless, he recommended a whopping 118 grams per day because of the cultural bias of the time. Protein equaled meat, and everyone aspired to have meat on his or her table, just as we aspire to have bigger houses and faster cars. Voigt figured you can't get too much of a good thing. The cultural bias had become firmly entrenched. If you were civilized, you ate plenty of protein. If you were rich, you ate meat, and if you were poor, you ate staple plant foods, like potatoes and bread. The lower classes were considered by some to be lazy and inept as a result of not eating enough meat or protein. Elitism and arrogance dominated much of the burgeoning field of nutrition in the 19th century. The entire concept that bigger is better, more civilized and perhaps even more spiritual, permeated every thought about protein. Pressing for quality. Protein, fat, carbohydrate and alcohol provide virtually all of the calories that we consume. Fat, carbohydrate and protein, as macronutrients, make up almost all the weight of food, aside from water, with the remaining small amount being the vitamin and mineral micronutrients. Protein, the most sacred of all nutrients, is a vital component of our bodies, and there are hundreds of thousands of different kinds. Proteins are constructed as long chains of hundreds or thousands of amino acids, of which there are 15 to 20 different kinds, depending on how they are counted. Proteins wear out on a regular basis and must be replaced. This is accomplished by consuming foods that contain protein. When digested, these proteins give us a whole new supply of amino acid building blocks to use in making new protein replacements for those that wore out. Various food proteins are said to be of different quality, depending on how well they provide the needed amino acids used to replace our body proteins. This process of disassembling and reassembling the amino acids of proteins is like someone giving us a multicolored string of beads to replace an old string of beads that we lost. However, the colored beads on the string given to us are not in the same order as the string we lost. We break the string and collect its beads. Then, we reconstruct our new string so that the colored beads are in the same order as our lost string. But if we are short of blue beads, for example, making our new string is going to be slowed down or stopped until we get more blue beads. This is the same concept as in making new tissue proteins to match our old worn-out proteins. About 8 amino acids, colored beads, that are needed for making our tissue proteins must be provided by the food we eat. They are called essential because our bodies cannot make them. If, like our string of beads, our food protein lacks enough of even one of these 8 essential amino acids, then the synthesis of the new proteins will be slowed down or stopped. This is where the idea of protein quality comes into play. Food proteins of the highest quality are, very simply, those that provide, upon digestion, the right kinds and amounts of amino acids needed to efficiently synthesize our new tissue proteins. This is what that word quality really means. It is the ability of food proteins to provide the right kinds and amounts of amino acids to make our new proteins. Can you guess what food we might eat to most efficiently provide the building blocks for our replacement proteins? The answer is human flesh. Its protein has just the right amount of the needed amino acids. But while our fellow men and women are not for dinner, we do get the next best protein by eating other animals. The proteins of other animals are very similar to our proteins because they mostly have the right amounts of each of the needed amino acids. These proteins can be used very efficiently and therefore are called high quality. Among animal foods, the proteins of milk and eggs represent the best amino acid matches for our proteins and thus are considered the highest quality. While the lower quality plant proteins may be lacking in one or more of the essential amino acids, as a group they do contain all of them. The concept of quality really means the efficiency with which food proteins are used to promote growth. This would be well and good if the greatest efficiency equaled the greatest health, but it doesn't, and that's why the terms efficiency and quality are misleading. In fact, to give you a taste of what's to come, there is a mountain of compelling research showing that low-quality plant protein, which allows for slow but steady synthesis of new proteins, is the healthiest type of protein. Slow but steady wins the race. The quality of protein found in a specific food is determined by seeing how fast animals would grow while consuming it. Some foods, namely those from animals, emerge with a very high protein efficiency ratio and value. The basis for this concept of protein quality was not well known among the public, but its impact was and still is highly significant. People, for example, who choose to consume a plant-based diet will often ask, even today, where do I get my protein? As if plants don't have protein. Even if it is known that plants have protein, there is still the concern about its perceived poor quality. This has led people to believe that they must meticulously combine proteins from different plant sources during each meal so that they can mutually compensate for each other's amino acid deficits. However, this is overstating the case. We now know that through enormously complex metabolic systems, the human body can derive all the essential amino acids from the natural variety of plant proteins that we encounter every day. It doesn't require eating higher quantities of plant protein or meticulously planning every meal. Unfortunately, the enduring concept of protein quality has greatly obscured this information. Research from India. It was an experiment involving liver cancer and protein consumption in 2 groups of laboratory rats. One group was given AF and then fed diets containing 20% protein. The second group was given the same level of AF and then fed diets containing only 5% protein. Every single rat fed 20% protein got liver cancer or its precursor lesions, but not a single animal fed a 5% protein diet got liver cancer or its precursor lesions. It was not a trivial difference, it was 100% versus 0%. Proof in science is elusive. Even more than in the core sciences of biology, chemistry and physics, establishing absolute proof in medicine and health is nearly impossible. The primary objective of research investigation is to determine only what is likely to be true. This is because research into health is inherently statistical. When you throw a ball in the air, will it come down? Yes, every time. That's physics. If you smoke 4 packs a day, will you get lung cancer? The answer is maybe. We know that your odds of getting lung cancer are much higher than if you didn't smoke, and we can tell you what those odds, statistics, are, but we can't know with certainty whether you as an individual will get lung cancer. In nutrition research, untangling the relationship between diet and health is not so straightforward. Humans live all sorts of different ways, have different genetic backgrounds, and eat all sorts of different foods. Experimental limitations such as cost restraints, time constraints and measurement error are significant obstacles. Perhaps most importantly, food, lifestyle and health interact through such complex, multifaceted systems that establishing proof for anyone factor and any one disease is nearly impossible, even if you had the perfect set of subjects, unlimited time and unlimited financial resources.